Welcome back. You're listening to the panel discussion, Cybersecurity, Ensuring Successful Security Outcomes, sponsored by Optiv and Checkpoint on Federal News Network. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guests today are Jonathan Fibus, the Chief Information Security Officer at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Stephen Hernandez, the Chief Information Security Officer and Director of Information Assurance Services at the Education Department, Linus Baker, the Director of Cybersecurity at the Defense Logistics Agency, Kenneth McNeil, the Chief Information Officer at the National Guard Bureau, and Jeff Schwartz, the Vice President of North America Engineering at Checkpoint. Now, at the end of the last segment there, we just started talking about this idea of orchestration and automation, and I think it's a huge key to really helping agencies understand and get a hold of their data. So Jeff, let me start with you on that question. As you're talking to your federal customers, as you're hearing from them, is that really the next big piece of the puzzle to really create this platform approach, is making sure you have this orchestration and automation?
Yeah, so in the last segment, Stephen commented about collaboration being kind of the model for consistency of execution across different pieces of the organization. And obviously, I'm paraphrasing here a bit, but I think reflecting on the operational differences that exist between what happens in the wild and the threat landscape and malicious actors, and what happens within 8 different agencies and organizations, that the reason malicious actors are able to move quickly is because they collaborate very quickly, that they share information very, very quickly and readily without holding on to it as being the gatekeeper. And I think that automation and orchestration provide the recipe and the ingredients for that type of collaboration within organizations and institutions, so that when an application owner makes changes to different elements, that it doesn't have to go through a very disconnected, linear, or serialized process of business logic approval, technical logic approval, operational logic approval, and then we have to schedule it, and we have to put it in staging, and then we have to put it in QA, and that it allows things to move much more quickly based on the area of relevance. Now, the keys to being successful with accelerating automation and orchestration is twofold. One, essentially you're delegating some degree of authority to some downstream element, whether it's the application owner, the different user populations, et cetera. So there needs to be controls around that and governance around that type of delegated authority. But the second piece is that the various infrastructure elements need to be able to talk to each other in a consistent fashion. And I think that's where the platform approach to implementing security allows for much more diversity and real-time linearity of in terms of producing the results, as opposed to this very serialized process of business, technical, operation, logic approval, and scheduling weeks and months out, that allows us to move much more quickly.
I want to bring in our DoD panelists on this question too, because I think DoD is probably a little bit closer than a lot of the civilian agencies to having that platform approach, whether it's through the JODN or something else through this U.S. Cyber Command is bringing. So maybe Kenneth McNeil from the National Guard, start us off a little bit. When you're looking at taking advantage of the platform that DoD is providing you for cybersecurity, where do you see the automation orchestration piece benefiting the National Guard?
This is a significant value, brings significant value to the National Guard and DoD. In the last segment, I kind of mentioned our relationship with the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, the JAIC. Because of AI and machine learning, our teams are using large-scale data analytics to identify malicious cyber and activities across the different networks. So again, for us, automation has identified attacks faster, and we were able to collaborate, of course, with our partners and in the states in a more effective way to help them at their Joint Force headquarters. And also, this ties into I talked earlier about the working with the interagency piece of this, and how they have to coordinate with local and state government. So this has been a capability that's really helped us. Now, is it fully developed, and do we have everything in place. No, it's still, as they say, building an airplane while in flight. This capability is only at the early stages, and from a guard perspective, it's going to be key for us in the future to stay nested with the JAKE and also our service partners in big DoD as they look at additional capability and as this capability mature in the future.
Linus, you want to jump in and talk a little bit about DLA's perspective of orchestration automation?
Sure. So when we talk, automation and orchestration from a cybersecurity perspective, you were correct in the fact that the DoD has been on this path at varying levels for some time. So for some time at a rudimentary level, we've had orchestration and automation capabilities enabled by our host-based security solutions, coupled with scanning. So those things would give you indicators of your secure configuration compliance, right? So we've been leveraging those types of things on all endpoints, on all servers, all assets relevant to the network and application environment. So we've utilized those things to kind of give us an idea of our secure posture with regards to configuration, patch management, those types of things. But as this evolves, and when we talk automation, we're really talking about RPA, machine learning, implementing those types of modernized solutions within this discipline, and that type of work is still in development. Is there application for that? There is application for that, and we will gain efficiencies by perfecting that. Now, that by all means won't remove those incident responders from the equation, because you're always going to need them to synthesize the data that's produced and take certain actions. So everything cannot be automated. I know one of the things we're definitely implementing right now is Comply to Connect. And that's something that will help us with asset management. It will help us manage those things that connect to our network. We talked about COVID-19 and the issues it raised with the mass amount of teleworkers. Well, DLA was in a kind of unique position there because we had done a number of things in the years past to kind of prepare for that. And a number of those things resulted in us lessening our attack vector by implementing virtual desktop infrastructure, by leveraging user-managed devices, as opposed to having thick clients issued to all 30,000 user accounts we have at DLA. So those types of things have helped us, but we still have endpoints that are out there, and we still need to be able to manage those boundary protections. And again, automation, that is the future. Are we there yet with RPA and machine learning? Not yet. Some of those things are being looked at today. We do see application and value in those things, but those are things that come in the future.
I'm going to go back to Jeff for a second from Checkpoint. One of the things, as you heard Linus talk about, we're on a path towards automation. We're on a path toward implementing things like RPA and machine learning. What's standing in the way of really going faster? Is it the data issue, too much data, not the right data, bad data, or is it the legacy or as someone prefers to say, outdated technology?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, it's in some cases, it's not the right data. In some cases, it's too much data. And I think that this varies widely by institution. Many organizations have certainly enough data to work with. The issue is it's too much data and how to separate the chaff from the wheat, so to speak. And I think this is operationally a very big challenge, because when we acknowledge the hard trends associated with cloud, with obviously we have a large work from home, across many institutions now. When we see the diversity of users and access requirements from both those users, the devices they're connecting from, the infrastructures they're connecting over, And we apply that to what we see from an access perspective, that the only way to adapt and evolve quickly to the scale associated with these trends is to be able to automate some of the controls around that and be able to separate from 11 million log entries, what are the three things that I need to be concerned with? And that requires very strong and robust, mature solutions that can have a view across the entire estate, at the same time providing intelligence and adequate intelligence across what are the three things out of the 11 million entries that are relevant to have human exploration, because there's no human capacity to dig into 50,000 events a day, at the scale we're operating.
Stephen, jump in here, because with the education department having so much already in the cloud, I think you said 100% in the cloud. Does that make a difference from a cybersecurity approach? Not just how you approach cybersecurity, but from the data problem, from adding these tools like RPA and ML. Where is the education department at and kind of try to get a hold of your data and then understanding your data?
Absolutely. And it's really understanding those native cloud capabilities that come with your service providers. Some service providers have very robust capabilities, for example, to build data lakes and then put orchestration and automation around that. And in many cases, it makes sense to keep the workload for that cloud provider there. But then, as Jeff was pointing out, start separating out the stuff that matters and getting that fed back to the centralized data lake. So for us, we've built a centralized data lake, and that's where we're collecting all of those good nuggets that we're mining out of various providers. And for us, as we look towards automation and orchestration, we're really following the zero trust approach, whether it's NIST 800-207, or we look at the ACT-IACT work and zero trust. We're saying, look, we know we have a lot of good data. Now, how do we apply the concepts of machine learning to make sense of it, use AI to start making decisions, and robotic process automation to effectuate that change? The biggest challenge we have, and this gets back to that collaboration conversation, and I think both Jeff and Jonathan hit on it quite nicely, is that you have to have mature processes already established within your environment, because automating garbage just means you get garbage a whole lot faster once the robots take over. And so, if there's any security analysts out there worried that the robot's coming to take my job, no, absolutely not. We still need the humans in there to establish those gold standard processes that we then take in and we bring into the automation realm.
Jonathan, jump in, because I know the NRC has been on a path to move to the cloud, probably not as far as the education has, but that makes you in the hybrid environment. So talk a little bit about how you guys are dealing with the data plus adding tools to it as you live in this hybrid environment.
So we're trying to make use of the native tools that are in the cloud. Some of them, as Steve mentioned, are quite robust. They're fantastic. The problem is some of them have different fields, different information, and apply different standards and interpretations to those data. So getting it back and getting it normalized is our huge challenge. And that's something we're learning in our hybrid environment. I think it's going to pay dividends as we move more and more to the cloud. The other challenge that we have as we move from security event management to security orchestration is that people are looking at a piece of data and interpreting it a little bit differently. So my NOC folks see something and they think, okay, a process has gone off the rails and we need to look at this process and figure out how to get it back in true. The SOC folks are looking at that thinking we're under attack. I don't want them canceling out each other's response to that. Availability is one of the metrics we're looking at for security. I need to have those systems. I need to have that data up and running. And if the SOC and the NOC responses are fighting each other and taking things down unnecessarily, that's not good. So elevating that data, getting that interpretation there, and making sure I've got a person who has experience at this, helping our automation processes learn what's wheat and what's chaff in some cases. And in some cases, the automation process is teaching my analysts what's the wheat and what's the chaff. Right now, we need that synergy because we are trying to trust our data. We're trying to trust our process. And as we want to move more fully to the cloud and more fully to a zero trust architecture, we need to trust the data that we have and how we're getting through it.
Well, Jonathan, that's a great place to end on. We could talk so much longer, but unfortunately, we are out of time for today. So first, let me thank my guests. Jonathan Fibus, the Chief Information Security Officer at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Stephen Hernandez, the Chief Information Security Officer and Director of Information Assurance Services at the Education Department. Linus Baker, the Director of Cybersecurity at the Defense Logistics Agency. Kenneth McNeil, the Chief Information Officer at the National Guard Bureau. And Jeff Schwartz, the Vice President of North America Engineering at Check Point. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me.
Goodness.
I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to the panel discussion, Cybersecurity, Ensuring Successful Security Outcomes, sponsored by Optiv and Check Point on Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Optiv.